Hey, you, what's happening at work? What's keeping you up at night? What's causing you frustration or depleting your wellness at work? Talk to me and with me. This is Joyce Odidison, your host with the What's Happening at Work show, where we create solutions to work, live, and play well. Join me now for next episode. Hello, and welcome here, Joyce Odidison, and this is number 2 of our Wellness Competency series, and today we're going to be talking about responsible communication. Now, as a conflict analyst, there is a lot of communication and miscommunication and false communication and all kinds of communication challenges I see in my work on a daily basis. And I've taught so many effective communication and communication this and so I've decided a few years back to start teaching responsible communication. I put the words together and now it's more commonly used. You see more people talk about responsible communication and use it in their work. Because responsible communication is a very important wellness competency. And here's how it becomes important. Because try and recall the last time somebody said something to you and it didn't go over well and you just didn't feel right about it and it bugged you and you went to sleep and you toss about it and it kept coming up in your mind and it was just on your mind and it kept bothering you. And that's communication. So when our communication is responsible, communication has a huge part to do with how we see the world, how we understand the world, how we interact with others, and how we make sense of our surroundings and our being. And as we do that, communication means everything because it is the currency for life. And without communication, life doesn't really have the impact that it needs. And we're not able to understand and share our messages in a profound way. So communication allows us to have interaction and to live in social networks as humans, which is what we do. So when we talk about responsible communication, it's aligned with the social wellness competency. It really aligns with the social wellness dimension and everything in there. When we look at social wellness, we look at the different relationships, network of relationships, schools, family, workplace relationship, we have community relationship, familial networks of relationships. And so it's really about how we maneuver the different various cultures in our relationship. So each network of relationship have its distinct culture. So we have our inside voice when we're at home. We say things with our families that we won't say at work. And if we're out playing tags with our friends, we don't say the same things we do when we're out in a professional outing with our boss and our colleagues. So we have those various networks of relationships and all the cultural norms and values of the various relationships. So when you go to work, you're not going to show up to work in your pajamas, except, of course, now that we're working from home and it's COVID-19 and some of us are still working from home, working remotely. But when we're going on that Zoom call, or we're going to have that FaceTime, or we would put a jacket over our nightgown because we don't want to show up in our nightgown necessarily because we want to send a message that we are working, we're productive, and we're putting on that professional image. By the way, if you're working in your nightgown, you might want to change that because we'll talk more about that in an upcoming competency. So why do I label responsible communication as a wellness competencies? Because communication affects our well-being. When people say things to us that we misunderstand, or when they misunderstand our communication, misjudge us, maybe lie on us or falsify information or exaggerate things that we were not intending to do, it affects us. It hurts our feeling. We feel confused. We feel misjudged. So communication in itself has a huge part to do with our stress level, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others, how we feel about our interaction and our connection in the community. Very, very important for us to stay and pay attention to that aspect of it. So what is responsible communication overall? Responsible communication really is how we communicate with our various networks. It is how we assess for the blocks. One of the things we do when clients come in and they have communication problems, we put them through our wellness assessment so that we can see where the roadblocks are, where they're having the blocks, where they're challenged. And it could be something happening spiritually, socially, emotionally, occupationally. It could be many varied things that affect our communication. It could be intellectually. It could be physically. So we look at interpersonally. So all these things can affect our ability to practice responsible communication. And it's good for us to take a holistic perspective and look at it instead of, pointing finger, you were a bad communicator. It's like, what do we need to remove? What blocks, what roadblocks, what opportunities, avenues are there to help you to communicate at a higher level? And so when we look at that, we look at what needs to change and we look at what people need to do differently. And it's so funny. I was listening to my students last week as they were talking about responsible communication, and they were looking at their clients and how they were having interpersonal dialogue and interpersonal skills issues with their family and children, and how they were coaching through that. It was very interesting to observe their discussion. So one of the things that we know is that when people have low self-esteem, which is in that area of integrity, they're living out of integrity with themselves, they're not doing the things they want to, so it keeps eroding their sense of well-being and who they are, and their sense of identity keeps being eroded by living out of alignment with themselves. So that means they are challenged, and that can sometimes affect their ability to practice responsible communication. So the act of responsible communication is to practice a good sense of how are we going to communicate. So it's that effective communication, but it goes a little further. It looks at the pace. How should I communicate? What should I say? How long should I say it? What is the tone? Am I going to be saying it? What is the right place? What's the right environment I should say it? Is this the right person I should say it to? How much should I say? Who should know about this communication? When should I share this communication? Who should be accountable in this particular situation? And it really gives us the opportunity to investigate that a little fuller. And one of the things to know is that wellness is dynamic. It goes up and down. So if you are in a distraught state, you will not be practicing the level of wellness communication that you would when you're calm and you don't feel threatened in any way. It's very important to recognize that tone, phrase, how we package it. We can use the sandwich method, which is, something positive, look at the issue, then something positive again. But one of the other aspects to responsible communication is cleaning up after, because no matter how good you are, no matter how well you practice, there are times, because we're not living in a vacuum and because the other person may have things going on in their life, you could be very, very good at packaging and it could end up coming out or being received incorrectly and cause quite a bit of upset for the other person. So responsible communication means I am going to clean up. I'm going to go back and see what happened. What did I do wrong? What did I didn't do? What didn't I do, and what can I do differently, and how can we renegotiate that conversation? And this is where I talk a lot about the whole aspect of renegotiation. To renegotiate, we have the person go back and we say, let's try this again. And this is something I've done with my kids over and over again. And I talk about it in my video. Because when we renegotiate, we are able to probably come back and say, I'm sorry, or let me get this information a little bit clearer, or I may have misjudged or misheard. Could you clear this up for me? Or let me clear this up for you. I would like to clarify. and there is more information that I should share, or that I can I have your permission to share more information. So what happens in that renegotiation is that it gives us an opportunity to heal some of the wounds, if any, and to reduce the agitation that can happen and the stress for people. Because when there is a communication gone bad, and we've practiced all the responsible communication strategies and things went south, we now have the responsibility to say, let me do something about it. We can't throw a hand up and say, well, I did my best and I was communicating very well, and it's their fault and they need to fix their head and they have a problem. As a responsible communicator, you recognize that, yeah, very well, the person may have issues or may be challenged, but then you ask yourself, how can I get that message across? What do I need to share further? How or what time do I need another person present? And this is where you make those kinds of assessment. Even at work, you're like, maybe I shouldn't be having meetings with that person by themselves. Maybe in future, when I'm having meetings with that person, I will have another person in the room. So those are some things that we can start to learn how we can execute at a different level to get the results we're looking for. Because we always have to be paying attention to the other person's response and how are they feeling this? How is it impacting them? What interpretation are they having of this particular exchange? And how can I be more responsible to ensure that it's going across the way that I intended for it to come across? And one of the things I want to share with you is really understanding the whole concept of responsible communication here is taking the responsibility to identify the best place, the time, the length, the purpose, the meaning, who needs to be present, what you need to say, what needs to come before it, what needs to come after it, how should you present yourself, should you be official? Should it be more in a friendly, a camaraderie way? What it will be the best way to package this information? Who should be there? Who should know that I'm sharing this information? Who shouldn't know? Who should I let know? Is this confidential or not? All these things are very important in practicing responsible communication because we want to ensure that our message is delivered as comfortably and without harm as much as possible. But as I said earlier, there are times even with everything we've done that there is some upset, and being responsible is going back and saying, let's renegotiate. And I've done this a lot with my kids, and I've also taught it with clients, going back and renegotiate and say, can we start over? Can we do this conversation over? Can we scratch the last conversation of the book and start over afresh? I have new thoughts, new insight. The different things came up for me. Can we have a second conversation? That's another one you can ask. Can we have a follow-up conversation? Even if we cannot scratch the other one, let's have a follow-up conversation to expand more. Can we have a second conversation or a third conversation? And that's very, very possible. Sometimes you may not having 4 or 5 conversations to get your point across, to learn from the other person, not to advocate your point of view, but to understand the other person and to share the message that you're giving them, ensuring that they're hearing and seeing and understanding and culturally communicating, connecting at a very good level. The other part that I want to do is leave you with some homework. And for the homework, I want you to go through your week in your mind mentally and look at, where do I need to renegotiate a relationship? Where do I need to renegotiate a communication or start over or change things or be more responsible or do some cleanup? Too often those things happen and we ignore them, or we sort of sweep them under the rug and hope the other person didn't notice, or hope we can get away with them. And what we've come to learn is that really we can't get away with things. We either delay the consequences or we make them bigger. So the goal here is to identify the challenge and then do what we must to remove it from our life and to ensure that we are not practicing a particular step or strategy in our communication that's causing breakdown in our future relationship. So go ahead, look at where do you need to renegotiate or or start over, and that would be your homework for today. Looking forward to hearing back from you, and let me know how that went. Did you do your homework? Did you start over? What did you start over on? And how did it go? This is Joyce Edison, and this is what's happening at work. And I'm so glad that you're here today. And we will come back with competency number 3 in the series of the wellness competency to learn more about how we can stay, work, live, and play well. You've been listening to What's Happening at Work. This is Joyce Edison, your host, and I want to thank you for being with us. Thank our guests and our sponsors, Interpersonal Wellness Services, Inc., the Global Workplace Wellness Summit, and of course, the Wellness Competency Mindset Movement. And if you want to hear from us, learn more, or get more episodes, join us at interpersonalwellness.com, where we help you to work, live, and play well. Bye now, and we'll see you for another episode.